The night was quiet until flashing red and blue lights turned it into a nightmare. A young black single mom named Aaliyah was driving home from her late shift with her 6-year-old son asleep in the back seat when police cruisers suddenly surrounded her car. They shouted orders, treated her like a criminal, and terror filled her heart. But what they didn't know was that Aaliyah's father wasn't just any man. He was one of the most feared Delta Force commanders in U.S. military history. And when she finally called him, everything changed. The night had been long, the kind of shift that drained not just your body but your soul. Aaliyah adjusted her rearview mirror as she steered her old silver sedan down the quiet Tulane road, the streetlights flickering dimly overhead. Her 6-year-old son, Malik, was curled up in the back seat with his head resting against his Spider-Man backpack. His little chest rose and fell rhythmically, the peaceful breathing of a child who trusted his mother to get him home safely. For a brief moment, that sight gave her strength. Every sore muscle, every aching joint from bussing tables and pouring coffee all day felt worth it because she knew she was working for him. But then the silence of the night broke. Sirens wailed behind her like a predator announcing its presence. Blue and red lights splashed across her rearview mirror, blinding her eyes. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Instinctively, her hands tightened on the steering wheel. She blinked twice, confused. She hadn't been speeding, hadn't rolled through a stop sign. She had been so careful. Why were they pulling her over? Aaliyah flicked on her turn signal, easing her car toward the shoulder. Gravel crunched under her tires as she pulled over beneath a flickering streetlight. She exhaled shakily, trying to calm herself. Maybe it was just a routine stop. Maybe they'd tell her a taillight was out. Maybe they'd let her go. But when she looked into her mirror, her pulse spiked. Not one, but 3 police cruisers had boxed her in. Doors slammed, heavy boots pounded the pavement, and suddenly blinding flashlights cut through the night. "Driver, put your hands where we can see them," a voice barked, sharp and commanding. Her hands shot into the air immediately, trembling in plain sight on the steering wheel. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "Mama? What's happening?" Malik's small voice cracked from the back seat, groggy with sleep and fear. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, though her voice shook. "Just stay still. Mommy's right here." The officers approached quickly, their flashlights aimed directly into her face. The beams were so bright she had to squint, tears forming in her eyes. "What's the problem, officer?" she asked carefully, her voice low, respectful, trembling. One officer yanked on the handle, but her doors were locked. His jaw tightened. "Step out of the vehicle. Now." Her pulse raced. "Can I ask why I'm being stopped?" "My son is in the back." "Step out of the car," another shouted, his tone sharp enough to make Malik burst into tears. The boy's small fists banged against the window, desperate to reach his mother. "Please," he's scared, Aaliyah pleaded. "Can I at least calm him down before? Don't make us tell you again." The officer's hand hovered near his holster, a silent threat. Aaliyah's stomach twisted. She slowly unbuckled her seatbelt with shaking hands, whispering back to her son, "Stay put, Malik. Don't move. Mommy loves you." Then she carefully opened the door and stepped out, her knees weak beneath her. The cold night air bit at her skin, but fear made her shiver more than the chill. They wasted no time. One officer grabbed her wrist roughly and yanked her away from the car. She stumbled, catching herself on the hood of the cruiser as they boxed her in with their bodies. "This car was reported stolen," one officer sneered. "License and registration." "Now." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "What?" "No, this is my car. I bought last year. I have the papers." "Don't lie to us," another cut in. His flashlight beam traced across her tired face, lingering with judgment. "People like you always have a story." Her throat burned with shame. "People like you." She knew exactly what he meant. "I can get my registration," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It's in the glove compartment. Please, let me just—" "You don't move unless I tell you to move." Her knees nearly buckled under the weight of his words. She wanted to scream, to cry, but she held it in for Malik's sake. Through the car window, she could see his tear-streaked face pressed against the glass, his little hands pounding against it. His muffled cries echoed in her ears. "Mama! Mama!" One officer leaned toward the window and tapped his flashlight against the glass. "Quiet down in there, little man," he said coldly, almost mocking. Aaliyah's heart shattered. "Don't you talk to my son like that," she cried, a sudden burst of fire cutting through her fear. That was a mistake. The nearest officer shoved her hard against the hood of her own car, pressing her cheek to the cold metal. Pain shot through her arm as he twisted it behind her back. "You want to resist?" he hissed. "That'll just make this worse." "I'm not resisting," she sobbed, the weight of humiliation crushing her. "Please, my son is watching. Please." Her pleas fell on deaf ears. Another officer opened her car door, rifling through her glove compartment and purse without asking. Receipts fluttered to the ground, her carefully folded paycheck stub landing in the dirt. Her world was being torn apart piece by piece under the glare of flashing lights. She tried to stay strong, tried to remember every survival tip she'd ever heard. Keep calm, don't argue, don't make sudden movements. But inside, her spirit was cracking. For a single mother who had fought every day just to keep food on the table, this felt like the cruelest betrayal. She had done everything right. She worked hard, obeyed the rules, loved her child fiercely. And still, she was treated like less than human. Tears spilled freely now, running down her face as her son's screams grew louder. "Mama, Mama, don't let them take you." The officers didn't care. To them, she was just another late-night stop, another stereotype, another box to check. They didn't see her pain, her exhaustion, her humanity. They didn't see the boy in the back seat who would remember this night for the rest of his life. And in that moment, under the crushing weight of injustice, Aaliyah realized something she had fought to ignore for years. She couldn't handle this battle alone anymore. She was about to make a call that would change everything. But first, she had to survive this night. Aaliyah's cheek pressed against the cold metal of her own car hood, her breath fogging the surface as an officer's weight bore down on her back. Her arms were wrenched behind her, and every tug sent sharp pain through her shoulder. She squeezed her eyes shut, but the tears wouldn't stop. She wasn't crying because of the pain, though it was unbearable. She was crying because of the small, terrified voice calling her name. "Mama, Mama, please, don't let them hurt you." Malik's screams pierced the night, his fists pounding frantically against the back seat window. Each thump echoed in her chest like a hammer, breaking her heart apart piece by piece. She wanted to tell him everything was okay, to smile through her tears and pretend this was just a mistake, but her voice shook when she tried to speak. "It's all right, baby," she choked out, her words muffled against the hood. "Mommy's fine. Fine," one officer scoffed, his voice sharp with disdain. "Lady, you're driving a stolen vehicle and resisting a lawful search. That doesn't sound fine to me." "It's not stolen," she cried, turning her head just enough to look at him. Her tears caught in the harsh glow of the flashlight beams. "I have proof, please, just let me show you." But he didn't listen. Instead, he motioned to another officer, who had already opened the back door and leaned inside. Malik recoiled, clutching his superhero toy tightly against his chest. The officer's flashlight beam danced across the little boy's face, highlighting the streams of tears rolling down his cheeks. "You know what happens when parents break the law?" the officer said coldly, his voice dripping with a cruel sort of amusement. "CPS gets called. Little guy like you ends up in foster care." Malik's wail was instant and guttural, his tiny voice trembling with panic. "No, I want my mommy. Don't take me away. Please." Aaliyah's heart shattered completely. "Stop it. He's just a child. Don't you dare talk to him like that," she screamed, thrashing against the grip on her arms. That earned her another shove. Her body hit the hood so hard her teeth rattled. Pain seared through her ribs, but she bit her lip to stop from crying out. They wanted her broken. They wanted her humiliated. But she couldn't let her son think she had given up. "Keep resisting, and we'll cuff you," the officer growled. Her chest heaved with ragged breaths. The humiliation was suffocating. She had always been proud of carrying herself with dignity, no matter how hard life got. She never wanted her son to see her as weak. But now, pinned and powerless under flashing lights. She felt like every ounce of that dignity was being stripped away. Malik's sobs grew louder. He pressed himself against the back seat window, his little palms flat against the glass. His muffled cries came out desperate and broken. "Mama, please come back. Please don't let them take you." One of the officers actually laughed, a hollow chuckle that sliced through the night. "Guess we got ourselves an audience. Don't worry, kid. Your mom's just learning a lesson about following the rules." That single line made something inside Aaliyah snap. She lifted her head, her voice raw, her tears falling fast. "I work 12 hours a day to keep a roof over that boy's head. I follow every rule, every law. I've never stolen a thing in my life. And you're teaching him that his mother doesn't matter, that he doesn't matter." For the briefest second, silence hung in the air. The officer holding her paused, as if her words had pierced something. But then, just as quickly, his grip tightened again. "Save this sob story," he muttered, forcing her face back down. Behind her, the search of her car grew louder. One officer dumped the contents of her glove compartment onto the ground. Old receipts, Malik's crayons, a packet of unopened crackers she kept for him when he got hungry on long rides. Another officer tossed her purse upside down, scattering the few bills she had from her paycheck. Her entire life spilled out on the dirty asphalt, picked apart like trash. Each item that hit the ground felt like a piece of her soul being crushed. "Mama!" Malik sobbed again, his voice hoarse now. His little hands beat against the glass until they were red. "Why are they doing this? Please make them stop." Aaliyah forced herself to lift her head again, ignoring the officer's grip. She turned toward the window where her son sat, his small face twisted with terror. "Look at me, baby," she whispered fiercely. "Don't look at them. Look at me. I love you. You hear me? I love you more than anything." The boy nodded, hiccuping through his tears. His toy slipped from his fingers and hit the floor, forgotten. All he wanted was his mother's arms around him. But she couldn't move. The humiliation burned deeper than the bruises forming on her body. She could feel the judgment in the officer's eyes, the unspoken words they thought about her. To them, she wasn't a mother. She wasn't a woman working herself to the bone for her child. She was a target, a stereotype, a problem to be handled. Her voice broke as she whispered, almost to herself, "God, please don't let my son remember me this way." The officers didn't care. They leaned against their cruisers, shining lights in her face, searching her car like vultures circling prey. The longer it dragged on, the more hopeless she felt. And yet, in the darkest corner of her despair, a fire started to grow. Humiliation twisted into rage, and rage sparked something else, resolve. She had stayed silent for too long, endured too much to protect her independence, to avoid asking for help. But now, watching Malik sob until his little chest heaved, she realized she couldn't fight this alone. Her father's voice, a memory from childhood, echoed in her mind. "When you're in danger, you call me. No matter what. Do you understand?" Back then, she'd rolled her eyes. She hadn't wanted to be the daughter of a man feared by so many, hadn't wanted to live in his shadow. But tonight, under flashing lights and humiliation, she finally understood what he meant. She couldn't protect Malik by herself anymore. She needed the one man who had fought battles on real warfields, the one man who would never let anyone lay a hand on his family without consequences. She needed her father, and the officers harassing her had no idea that the broken, tear-streaked woman they were humiliating was about to make a call that would change everything. The night had already broken her down piece by piece. Her wrists ached from the officer's grip, her face stung from being shoved against the hood, and her dignity lay scattered across the ground with the receipts, crayons, and paycheck stubs they had tossed from her car. But what hurt the most wasn't the pain in her body. It was the sound of her son crying until his little voice cracked, his hands pounding helplessly against the glass as he begged for her. "Mama, please don't let them take you. I need you." Malik's wail echoed like thunder in her ears. Aaliyah's body trembled uncontrollably. She had spent 6 years fighting to be everything her son needed: protector, provider, comforter. She had promised herself that no matter how hard life got, she would never let him see her break. But tonight, under the glare of flashing lights and the cruel smirks of men who saw her as nothing but a suspect, she felt something inside her snap. One officer leaned down, his voice dripping with authority. "We're calling CPS. Your kid's going to spend the night somewhere safe while we sort this out." The words punched her harder than any shove could. Her chest caved in, her breath caught, and for a terrifying second, the world blurred. CPS. They wanted to take Malik, to rip him from her arms, from the only stability he had ever known, just because they could. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking with terror. "No, please don't do this. He's all I have. I'm all he has." The officer shrugged, indifferent. "Then you should have thought of that before you started lying about this car." It was the moment her heart broke completely. For years, she had swallowed every insult, endured every hardship, worked herself to exhaustion just to keep her little boys safe. She had taught herself to smile through the pain, to keep her head down, to never ask for help. She had done everything by herself because she believed she had to. But now, as Malik's sobs filled the night, she realized something crushing. She couldn't protect him alone anymore. Her body shook with sobs she couldn't contain. She pressed her forehead against the hood, whispering to herself, "I can't lose him. I can't let them take him from me." And then, like a whisper from her past, her father's voice echoed in her memory. "When you're in danger, you call me. No matter what. Do you understand, Aaliyah?" She had been a teenager when he'd said it, rolling her eyes at his dramatic tone. He was always larger than life, always in control, always intimidating. And she had spent so many years resenting it, wanting to prove she didn't need his shadow to survive. But now she understood. Her shaking hands fumbled in her pocket, fingers curling around the one thing she still had control over, her phone. She pulled it out slowly, her thumb hovering over the screen. For a long moment, she hesitated. Calling him meant admitting she wasn't strong enough on her own. Calling him meant opening a door she had slammed shut years ago. But then she heard her son again, his tiny voice hoarse with desperation. "Mama, don't let them take me. Please." That was all it took. She unlocked the phone with trembling hands and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she hadn't dared to touch in years, Dad. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she pressed the call button. It rang once, twice, and then the deep, steady voice she remembered so well filled her ear. "Aaliyah." His tone was alert, sharp, as though he could already sense something was wrong. The sound of his voice broke her completely. She sobbed into the phone, her words spilling out between gasps. "Daddy, I need you. Please, I can't. They're trying to take Malik. They're saying my car is stolen. They won't listen." Her words dissolved into tears, but he didn't need more. "Where are you?" His voice was like steel, calm and commanding. Not panicked, not dismissive, just steady, like a man who had been through worse storms and always come out in control. I don't know the street," she stammered, looking around wildly at the dark road, the flickering streetlight, the towering silhouettes of trees. "It's near Route 17. There's a gas station sign down the road. Please." "Stay calm," he said firmly, his voice cutting through her panic like a lifeline. "You're not alone anymore. Do you understand me? Stay calm and protect Malik. I'll handle the rest." The phone clicked. He was already moving. Aaliyah clutched the phone to her chest, her tears flowing freely. For the first time that night, she felt a flicker of something other than fear. Hope. But the officers noticed. One of them stepped closer, sneering. "Who are you calling, huh? Doesn't matter. Nobody's coming to save you." She lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen, but filled with a new fire. "You're wrong," she whispered. Her voice cracked, but the certainty in her tone made the officer pause. "Someone is coming." The officer scoffed, turning back to rifle through her trunk, but Aaliyah didn't care anymore. She pressed her face against the window where her son still cried, forcing a shaky smile through her tears. "It's okay, baby. Grandpa's coming." Malik sniffled, confusion flickering in his wet eyes. "Grandpa, but you never." Her voice steadied, stronger than before. "He's coming, Malik, and nobody's going to take you from me." Inside, She was still terrified. Her body still shook. But something had changed. The breaking point had come. And instead of shattering her completely, it had pushed her to reach for the one thing she had always been too proud to accept: help. And help was already on its way. The officers didn't know it yet, but the woman they were humiliating had just made the most important call of her life. And the man on the other end of that call wasn't just any father. He was Colonel Marcus Hayes, the most feared Delta Force commander the U.S. military had ever seen. And when he arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. The phone call ended, but the echo of her father's voice lingered in Aaliyah's ears like a lifeline. "Stay calm. Protect Malik. I'll handle the rest." Those words replayed in her mind over and over, steadying her heartbeat. For the first time that night, fear didn't completely control her. Hope slipped in, thin but powerful. The officers didn't notice the shift in her. They were too busy tossing her belongings onto the asphalt like scavengers. One found Malik's drawing pad, flipping through it with mocking laughter. "What's this, huh? Mama's little artist? Guess he'll have plenty of time to draw in foster care." Malik screamed again, pressing his small face against the glass, his hands pounding weakly. "Stop it. That's mine. Give it back." Aaliyah's body trembled with rage, but she forced herself to breathe. She had to hold on just a little longer. Her father was coming. Colonel Marcus Hayes sat in his study, an old leather chair creaking beneath his weight. His house was simple, almost bare, the kind of home where everything had a purpose. Framed commendations lined the walls. A folded American flag rested in a display case above the fireplace. He had been sipping black coffee, reviewing an after-action report one of his former brothers-in-arms had sent him, when his phone rang. The moment he heard his daughter's broken voice, something inside him roared awake. For years, he had respected her distance, letting her live independently, even when it hurt him to stay away. But tonight, the sound of her sobs wasn't just a call for help. It was a declaration of war. He was no longer
Within
a man
minutes,
sitting
the
in
sound of a
retirement.
powerful
He was the
engine
commander
cut
again.
through the tense
He didn't
night.
hesitate.
The headlights of
His
a black
fingers flew
SUV
across the
piercing the
keypad,
darkness,
calling
like
an old
twin
contact at the
searchlights.
state police.
Aaliyah's heart
Captain
leapt.
Miller,
Hope
a
flickering
voice
through the
answered
fear
groggily.
that had consumed
Miller,
her only
it's
moments
Hayes.
before.
My daughter's
Her
being
father,
harassed right
Marcus
now
Hayes,
by local cops,
the man
near
whose
Route
reputation
17.
as a Delta
I want
Force
immediate
commander
dispatch
was
sent
spoken
to
of
that
in
area.
whispers in the most
Now.
dangerous circles,
was on his way, and nothing would stop him from reaching her. The SUV screeched to a controlled stop behind the police cruisers, its tires crunching against the gravel shoulder. Aaliyah's breath caught as Marcus stepped out, his broad frame silhouetted against the harsh glare of the flashing lights. He moved with absolute precision, every step deliberate, every motion radiating command. This wasn't just a man arriving. It was a force of nature, calm yet unstoppable. "Step away from her," Marcus said, his voice low and steady, cutting through the chaos. The officers froze, their confident postures faltering as uncertainty flickered in their eyes. Aaliyah felt herself trembling, relief and awe battling the lingering adrenaline in her veins. Malik pressed closer to the window, peering at his grandfather through tear-streaked eyes, his small voice breaking the tension. "Grandpa." Marcus's gaze softened for only a moment at the sight of his grandson, but his focus snapped back to the officers immediately. "You have no right to treat them this way. Not a single one of you." The first officer straightened, attempting to maintain authority. "Sir, this is a legal stop. Please step back." Marcus didn't move an inch. "Legal? You call this legal? You humiliated a woman and terrified a child over a mistake. That is not law enforcement. That is abuse of power." His voice was ice, controlled fury radiating from every syllable. The officers glanced at each other nervously, realizing instinctively that this was no ordinary father. This was a man who had faced threats far deadlier than anything they could conjure, and now he stood before them, fully focused and lethal in his authority. Aaliyah, still pressed against the hood, could barely speak through her tears. "Daddy, thank you. I didn't think anyone would." Marcus placed a firm hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "I'm here. I told you I would come. I will protect you, always." Malik's sobs softened as Marcus knelt to lift him from the car's seat. holding him tightly against his chest. "It's okay, little man," he whispered. "You're safe now. No one will hurt your mom again. I promise you that." The officers shuffled backward, unsure how to respond. One of them reached for his radio, but Marcus's sharp gaze cut across the night, stopping the gesture without a word. "I suggest you rethink your actions tonight and file a full report on your conduct. You are not dealing with an ordinary citizen. You are dealing with someone who will hold you accountable for every wrongful move." The tension in the air was suffocating. Aaliyah felt a strange mix of fear and awe, knowing the man standing before her was not just her father, but a warrior who had faced death countless times. And now, his battlefield was protecting his family. Marcus turned fully to his daughter and grandson, his presence shielding them. "We are leaving. Now, nothing else matters tonight. No one touches either of you again. Do you understand?" Aaliyah nodded, her tears falling freely. Malik buried his face in Marcus's chest, murmuring, "Grandpa, I knew you'd come." Marcus exhaled, allowing himself a brief moment of quiet satisfaction. For years, he had kept a distance, letting Aaliyah live independently, fearing the danger his presence might bring. But tonight proved that some battles weren't about fear or distance. They were about protecting those who could never defend themselves in the way he could. With a firm hand, Marcus guided them to the SUV. Aaliyah climbed in first, then Malik clinging to his mother. Marcus paused for a final glance at the officers. "Remember this night. Remember who you crossed. And never, ever forget the difference between authority and responsibility." The SUV's engine roared, a signal that the battle of this night was ending. But Marcus Hayes's promise, fierce and unyielding, echoed louder than any siren. No one would ever harm his family while he was around. As they drove into the quiet streets, the flashing lights behind faded into the distance, leaving only the calm night and the sense of safety for the first time in hours. Aaliyah held Malik close, feeling the weight of fear lift from their shoulders, replaced by the unbreakable assurance of her father's protection. And in that silence, filled with both relief and lingering adrenaline, a promise was sealed. Marcus Hayes would always be their shield, a guardian no force could overcome, and a father whose presence alone turned fear into safety. The night air finally settled into a tense, uneasy calm. The flashing red and blue lights of the officers' cars were now distant, fading into the darkness, leaving only the quiet hum of Marcus Hayes's black SUV and the soft whimpers of Malik tucked safely against his mother. Aaliyah's hand still trembled as she held her son, her chest heaving with relief and lingering fear. For hours, she had felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare she could not control. But now, with her father at her side, a shield as unyielding as steel, that fear began to melt into a profound sense of safety. Marcus glanced at his daughter, his eyes softening for the first time since the chaos began. "You're safe now," he said firmly, yet gently, resting a protective hand on her shoulder. "And I mean safe. No one will ever harm you or Malik again. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever." Aaliyah swallowed hard, tears spilling freely. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I had to handle it alone." "You never did," Marcus replied. "Some battles demand every bit of strength, every bit of skill, and every ounce of loyalty I have. And I will always use it to protect my family." Malik peeked out from between them, his small eyes still wide from fear, and whispered, "Grandpa, will they come back?" Marcus's gaze hardened, a cold edge beneath his calm exterior. "No, not while I'm awake. Not while I breathe. You will never have to wonder if someone can hurt your mom again. I promise you, little man, your family is untouchable." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle around them. Tonight was a warning. Anyone who ever thinks they can intimidate or threaten us will learn the hard way that the Hayes family does not bend, break, or falter. We protect each other, no matter the cost. Aaliyah held Malik close, letting her father's words wash over her. The humiliation, the fear, the helplessness of earlier hours still lingered, but it was tempered now with gratitude, awe, and a strange sense of empowerment. She realized that strength came not just from surviving alone, but from knowing someone with the power to change the tide would always stand behind her. Marcus started the SUV, the engine's low rumble filling the space with a sense of authority. He glanced at Aaliyah and Malik in the rearview mirror, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugging at his lips. "We're heading home. Nothing will touch us again tonight. But make no mistake, this is only the beginning. From this moment forward, no injustice against our family will go unanswered. I will be there before anyone can even consider acting against us." Malik burrowed further into his mother's embrace. "Grandpa, I was so scared," he admitted, his voice muffled. "I know, son," Marcus said, reaching back to ruffle the child's hair. "And it's okay to be scared. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is facing it, knowing someone has your back. And I will always have your back, just like I have your mom's." Aaliyah's heart swelled at the sight of her father and son together. She had always known him as a legendary commander, a man whose courage and discipline were unmatched in the most perilous situations. But tonight, she understood a deeper truth. Marcus Hayes's greatest strength was not in his military skill, but in his devotion, his relentless protection, and his unwavering promise to those he loved. The SUV glided along the quiet streets, streetlights casting fleeting shadows across their faces. The fear that had gripped them earlier in the night had not disappeared entirely, but it was now replaced with a powerful sense of security. Every mile they drove reaffirmed that Marcus Hayes was more than a warrior. He was a shield, a fortress, and a father who would stop at nothing. Aaliyah finally let herself exhale, leaning back in her seat and closing her eyes. She could feel Malik's small hand clasping hers, and the warmth of her father's presence pressed close to them. She whispered, almost to herself, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Marcus's eyes never left the road, but his voice was soft when he answered, "You never have to thank me. Protecting my family is not a favor, it's my duty. And I swear, from this night forward, you and Malik will never know fear like that again. I will be vigilant. I will be prepared. I will always come." Malik peeked at him through sleepy, tear-stained eyes. "Grandpa, you're like a superhero." Marcus allowed a faint smile. "Better than a superhero. I'm your grandfather, and you're never alone." The night deepened around them, quiet and still, a stark contrast to the chaos they had endured. But the Hayes family knew, without doubt, that they had emerged stronger, united, and unbreakable. The events of the night had proven that fear could be faced, injustice could be challenged, and love and protection could be absolute. By the time they reached the safety of home, Marcus had already begun planning the next steps, ensuring legal clearance, protection, and absolute accountability for anyone who had dared threaten his family. But inside the SUV, those immediate worries were secondary to a simple, undeniable truth. Aaliyah and Malik were safe. They were together, and Marcus Hayes had kept his most sacred promise. The door to their home opened, and Marcus guided them inside, every step deliberate and protective. Malik ran to his toys, a cautious smile breaking through his tired eyes, while Aaliyah sank into the comfort of her father's arms one last time before heading to bed. Standing there, watching his daughter and grandson, Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction unlike any mission he had ever commanded. This was a victory not marked by medals or reports, but by the unbreakable bond of family, the promise of protection, and the knowledge that, come what may, he would always be there to defend them. And as the night finally settled into silence, one thing was certain. The Hayes family would never again be powerless, and Marcus Hayes would always be their shield, their protector, and their unwavering promise in a world that sometimes forgot the value of true courage.